Welcome to Senior Living Marketing Perspectives. I'm Debbie Howard, co-founder of Senior Living Smart. And today I'm talking to Tom Sanders, who is a professor of photography at the Savannah College of Art and Design, and also the author of The Last Good War, The Faces and Voices of World War II, and the best, without a doubt, senior living photographer and videographer that I know in the industry. So welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Debbie. I appreciate it. I actually just had another book published called Vietnam War Portraits of the Faces and Voices that just came out.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. I need to send you a
That's,
copy.
yeah,
Yeah, but
I'd
thank you for
love to
having me.
see that. Absolutely. I think we were introduced probably by our friends Jeff and Carlene at Belmont Village because you did some gorgeous photography projects and actually kind of a little book, right, for Belmont?
Yeah, that's how I actually got into it's kind of how I got into working with the within the senior living industry. I had this homework assignment in college where I photographed this World War II veteran, and then it ignited this project where I wanted to travel the country and photograph World War II veterans and interview them. And it was my goal to get this big coffee table book published. And I teamed up with I teamed up with Belmont Village, and they sent me around the country, and that resulted in a coffee table book published with Random House when I was 25 years old. So I'm
Wow.
almost 36. So I've really been working with seniors since I was since I was 21. So pretty long time.
Yeah, I have to say, I'd love your feedback on this because you probably look at a lot of senior photography and senior living websites and so much of the stock photography you just see everywhere, the same people, the same images, and it seems to kind of fall into a couple categories. One is people who are at least 20 to 25 years younger than the actual residents.
Mhm.
you
Right.
know, and then the other, which seem to kind of, I don't know, position seniors in ways that are very silly,
Hmm.
and almost childish.
Yeah,
Do you see that?
yeah. It's funny. I actually have my own senior stock photography company that I recently launched. But I was photographing my mother-in-law recently, and she kind of made some joke that whenever she sees ads or stock photo ads, it's always like an older man and his wife is like 25 years younger or something like that,
Yeah.
which I thought was kind of interesting. Just, she's the client, the kind of senior consumer. But yeah, a lot of the times, companies aren't willing, aren't willing to spend a lot of money on senior stock photos. They're like buying them from companies. They're either maybe getting them free or getting them really cheap. And a lot of times they're not willing to spend the money. And that's why we see a lot of the same senior stock photos on a lot of different companies' websites because they're cheap and, not, I think not all senior living companies, but some senior living companies aren't willing to spend that extra money in either hiring a photographer, and or filmmaker, or, spending, a decent amount of money on good quality images.
Right. I think what I really appreciate about your photography is you get up close. You're not afraid of wrinkles. You're not afraid to kind of show the life behind, and it's very, very realistic, but it's also just incredibly respectful and beautiful. So I think the reason that a lot of people might buy those other photographs is it kind of idealizes, how we're trying to present maybe our ideal prospect. But let's face it, our ideal prospect is 82, 85, 90 years old. They're probably not riding around in wheelbarrows.
Yeah,
They
just
actually,
on a, yeah, go ahead.
no, you go.
I was gonna say, like, and I'm not, with my own, so my stock photography company is called seniorstockphotos.com. And, I really try and focus on seniors that actually would live in a senior living community. The average age for most senior living communities, I was told, is about 85 years old. And a lot of
Right.
times we're seeing in these marketing images is seniors that are more like 65 or 60. And it's also kind of hard to come by photographing seniors that are in their 80s for some of these images. And a lot of times when clients, outside of stock photography, when senior living companies hire me to do photo shoots, we're photographing their actual residents. And that's where the authenticity comes through, in the photos and films.
Yeah, and the images are just beautiful. And how do the models feel? How do the residents feel when they're part of a photography project?
I definitely think that the residents feel like celebrities for the day and feel appreciated when I get to photograph and do the films on them. And also, some of the residents I'm photographing have dementia or Alzheimer's, but they never appear to have the dementia or Alzheimer's in the images, and that is a real challenge. It is it is very hard to capture a good image. Generally, if people have cognitive challenges, and you just have to be very, very patient and really, really be very, very organized. It is not any photographer or filmmaker can do films or photo shoots on seniors that have cognitive disabilities.
Right. No, I'm sure. I know. Well, we recommended you for a client that you did a video project, in the memory care neighborhood, and having to kind of navigate, just the reality of the disease process and living in that environment, but also having to get the shoot and having to get the lighting in a very sometimes unpredictable environment. And yet, I just find that you really capture the essence of the person, and you're able to, I think, visually represent their humanity. Doesn't matter if they have dementia or not.
Yeah, one interesting thing I want to see senior living companies take more advantage of is that there are some seniors that have these really fantastic stories, such as, I photographed a senior who was 91 and he rode his cycle. He rode his like an actual like bike, like a professional cycling bike. He rode his bike 150 miles a week at the age of 91 years old. While that's, very unheard of and extreme, there are stories that exist like that within senior living communities, and I would love to see companies, take more advantage of these really spectacular stories because it inspires other seniors, and the material is already right there, and all the seniors are generally willing to partake in the photo shoots and films when asked.
So, what is the opportunity in senior living marketing to really? We talk about storytelling, and yet I think when you look at the copy on most websites, it's kind of vanilla. It pretty much is the same kind of description, and it tends to be around the care, the services, and the amenities. But how do you kind of capture, more of that storytelling through photography?
I think you're kind of more talking about just advertising photography, ad campaigns, right? For
Hmm.
website, right, collateral. I mean, I think a big part of it is working with outside companies such as Senior Living Smart or ad agencies to get a really strong ad campaign going. And I think that companies generally need to be, as I was saying, need to photograph their own residents, and there's just a lot of organization that has to go into organizing these photo shoots. Generally, wardrobe is a huge deal. On all my big ad photo shoots, the community goes in, helps out the residents pick out like solid colored clothing. They can't wear like an old like San Francisco Giants t-shirt, unless they're sitting at the bar with other people watching a baseball game. Then it's okay. But generally, you want to make them really nice looking. Generally, we have hair and makeup on set. Um,
Okay.
we put forth a lot of effort into the production aspect so companies get high-end photos. On top of that, when I do photo shoots, we usually do about 8 to 9 setups in one day. And so let's say we're doing a dining shot. Well, within that dining shot, we're photographing seniors around a table, but then we're going to photograph chef interacting with the seniors. Or the residents. We're going to photograph the waiters interacting with the residents. So within one setup, we have a lot of different variations, and the company gets more bang for their buck because they have a lot more images to use, and they get more longevity out of the photo shoot. And generally, I also think that senior living companies should generally be, updating their photos for each community website at least every 2 years, because it just starts to get old and outdated. And they're always senior living communities are generally always remodeling and updating, and so you have to keep up with that so the potential residents and their family members can see the communities up to date.
Yeah, it seems like operators are willing to invest in the architectural photography and drones, and they
Hmm.
have a lot around the real estate. And, it's funny because on the one hand, marketing folks are always saying, we're not selling the real estate, right? We're selling the lifestyle. But then the thing that they don't invest in is the lifestyle shots. So, it, and do you think that that is probably just a financial thing? But, are you able to kind of make a case for the investment and have any sense of an ROI, or do you advise them in how to repurpose the photography so that how you can take one photo shoot and turn it into a dozen different campaigns, for example?
Yeah, I mean, some companies hire me to go to, particular senior living community, right? And then they'll use all those photos, for that community website, but then also use those photos for, the company as a whole in terms of marketing. It also kind of depends on the project, like with like, Belmont Village, for example, with the ongoing veterans project I do with them. So every photo shoot I do for them results in a permanent gallery exhibition. But every time I do that film or photo shoot, the TV news pretty much comes to every photo shoot in big markets in Los Angeles. And so it's like, we might be at a community in LA or Chicago or Houston. I mean, these are huge media markets where the TV news comes out, interviews myself and the veterans, and it's like a 3-minute commercial. And that 3-minute commercial, or excuse me, that 3-minute TV news interview is really like a commercial, and that commercial is really worth like, you know, a few $1 million or a few $100,000. So there's definitely a big return, on that. Also, like I did a film for MBK Senior Living on this painter who's going blind, and that got picked up on social media. She's this really wonderful painter, really positive story, and that got picked up on Upworthy and ended up getting 1 million views, which is pretty good. It's not
Right.
like Lady Gaga, it's not like the 100
Right.
million views of like the turkey running around like the tree in the Burger King parking lot, right? But
Yeah.
it's pretty good for a senior living industry, and that definitely helped land more sales, and also shows like this painter that's going blind that's really fun, has this positive outlook on life. That represents the type of person that lives at MBK Senior Living. It's definitely in that Kenwood Santa Rosa community where I did the film on her.
Yeah, I really like that, Tom, because, so often what we hear in sales is, my mom doesn't look like these people. Like somehow they're
Mhm.
not relating to either, how the community is positioning themselves, or when they come visit, they're not kind of having that
Mhm.
experience. So for operators to be able to go out and create their own narrative, right? And position themselves, and really show those positive aspects. It's something that we can control, and then
Mhm.
we can push it out through various media channels. So
Mhm.
I think that's a really important point. And then what do we do? What have you thought about? And I'm sure you've seen the images. And just to put into context for the listeners, we're recording today at the end of April of 2020 when we're all dealing with COVID. And I know you're home with your two little ones and doing virtual lectures at the college. But I'm sure that you've seen the negative images of senior living, even though they're kind of lumping it into nursing homes in terms of how the industry is being represented in the news. So when we come out of this and we start to reopen for tours and for move-ins, how do you see the opportunity to kind of rebuild that trust, and maybe how do we leverage kind of those visual expressions in our marketing campaigns? Because I'm just wondering, how do we pivot from this kind of negative representation that people are seeing on the news to all of the positive aspects of being in a community? And how do we do that with sensitivity?
That is a really good question, and that's something I'm gonna have to chew on because there's, I like when in listening to you ask that question, I first think that companies are going to have to represent safety, cleanliness, cleaning in some way, even if that's like an image that has kind of like this kind of clean, simple feeling, like clean just meaning like a lot of negative space. I think that maybe more emphasis on images of residents with family members, maybe more emphasis on residents with the caretakers and the nurses and employees, I think is going to be pretty
Yeah.
important. They're definitely going to need a lot of reassurance, but I do know
Yeah.
that some of my clients, don't have any problem with move-ins right now, and I still think it's a growing
Yep.
industry. And that's, it's interesting. I always kind of thought the senior living industry was kind of bulletproof. Like even during the recession in 2008, that's like when my company really started to take off, and I was, photographing seniors all over the country. But until COVID hit, I mean, I guess really a lot of industries are affected from it. But, people are only going to grow old, population is only going to increase, and people are going
Right.
to need to go live in living communities, So I still think that industry is definitely going to continue to grow. It's just in the, photos and films that companies should be doing. I think they're going to need a lot of reassurance. I also think that I don't think senior living companies do enough images of seniors outside of the community. Like I would love to, and I
Yeah.
have been pushing some of my clients to do this, and we've been starting to do it. But it would be nice to see like seniors out at the park outside of the community, right? I did some of
Hmm.
that for Carlton Senior Living actually, where I think it was Danville or Walnut Creek. It was one of those other East Bay communities where we walked down to the local park and did a farmer's market and did this great POV film for them, and that's something I think might help the marketing of senior living companies as well, seeing seniors out and about in communities interacting.
Yeah, I really like that because even the images that people are looking at as positive, like, oh, here's this great image of this person who turned 100 and her family outside the window, it's still sad. Like even
Yeah,
the uplifting images, I mean, you either have images of ambulances, right? Or you have images of, people touching through a window. So I think, I think this is an opportunity where we're going to have to reposition ourselves, and whether it's using images to contrast the experience of being isolated truly at home versus social isolation in a community. I think that they're very different experiences. So here we are, everyone's social isolating, but my mom's 87, she's home alone, right? And so very little contact,
yeah,
having to rely on, folks to drop off meals or go grocery shopping, or not being able to get to the doctor, like all of those things that, her daily experience is very different than people who are living in the community are not worried about their meals. They're not
hmm,
worried about, you know, somebody to care for them because there's
right,
24-hour staffing. They're not worried about, am I going to have hand sanitizer? Am I going to have cleaning supplies? Am I going to have toilet paper? I mean, all of these things that it's the same experience, right? It's still social
right,
isolation, but it's a very different contrast to have kind of, my mom sitting home with a can of soup being her social isolation, and a
right,
person being, and a person being delivered a beautiful gourmet nutritious meal. That's a different experience. So I kind of
right.
wonder if there's, how directly you go after that,
Mm.
or do you just represent the positive or look at testimonials, maybe videos more impactful where people are really talking about, I didn't have to worry about my mom because I knew that there was always somebody there with her. And we loved
Right.
the video chats. And I knew that she wasn't going to run out of anything. I knew that she wasn't going to run out of her medication. So I'm just wondering how you kind of see us telling that story when and how we overcome some of those negative images that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, I think part of it is just kind of probably repeat advertising, the testimonials and that imagery. I do think you're right in the sense that the testimonials are really powerful. I know that's a big seller for a lot of senior living companies. Some senior living kind of commercials or videos, it's very like a hotel boutique where maybe it's like a narrator and then they just talk over, everything, here are the amenities and stuff, which I think is, some of the companies, I think it's fine to have. But I think you also have to have those testimonial films as well, and just as a professor at SCAD, the university is sending us a lot of emails in terms of reassurance and making us feel better, and then emailing the students as well, making the students feel better. And so maybe a
Yeah.
part of it is just, the senior living, the corporate headquarters sending more emails of reassurance to the family members. But I think you're right. It's definitely complicated. I just shot a senior stock photo of my mother-in-law wearing an N95 mask, and she has her fist in the air, like kind of fighting and protecting the
Yeah.
virus. It's actually being received pretty well on LinkedIn. But one person commented like, "Oh, it's like kind of sad that like this is like
All
what
right.
what some stock photography is right now." And I was like, I totally agree with you. It is totally sad.
Yeah.
But that image I think is positive, and it's evoking a lot of good positive comments from people. So there is a tactful way to create powerful imagery, post COVID. I have a question for you. When do you think it's going to be back to normal for senior living communities? Because like I was telling you, in terms of like people entering back in, do you think it's
Right.
going to change and be a lot more strict moving forward? Because so like I have something like 40 films and photo shoots planned this year, which have all been put on hold, and I'm kind of
Right.
wondering, when am I going to get to do those? And are senior living
Right.
companies going to be like extra protective, and like how long, when people get to go back into communities?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. I think it will be state by state because some have been more impacted than others. And I think it depends on, how they've kind of weathered the pandemic so far. So we have clients that are COVID free, from the staff and the residents. And I think they have a different story to tell. And I think that they'll open, a bit sooner. We have some clients that have testing kits and we have
Right.
a lot that don't. So, I think it will differ. I don't think it will be like going back to normal. I think it's going to be just a gradual, entrance. And I think the interesting thing is that this is for senior living marketing folks to reimagine how they
Hmm.
sell and how they market. So we're using a lot more video. People are using FaceTime or Heart Legacy or whatever because we had to recreate all of those personal experiences. A few weeks ago, I think I would have told you that you're not going to move anyone into your community that doesn't tour or come to an event or have lunch or somehow they've
Hmm.
got to cross the threshold of your community to experience it, to feel comfortable and to choose you. And
Hmm.
yet now people are like, you know what? We're taking deposits on video. We're walking people in and going, this apartment just opened. Let me show you around. And this would be the view from your mom's window. And,
Right.
would you like to deposit on it? And, that's kind of cool because we didn't think that, that kind of broke our barriers to our belief systems.
Right.
Uh, and so now we think we can use some of these tools differently. But I think people will be cautious. When I think people, I don't know whether everyone will be tested coming in, but I think that they'll probably be toured with masks. I think we're going to be really careful about exposing residents to anybody. So, you might go to the discovery room, which tends to be kind of a private area just for tours and the residents don't like hang out there. And then you might go to the model apartment, but you might not get, that whole experience of going through the dining room because people are going to be so protective and and you think about events, we used to have these big events and speakers and I don't know how long it will take, but maybe it'll help us rely on video events and webinars and virtual events and Facebook Live. And so hopefully it'll strengthen us, right?
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah, we're definitely all adapting. I mean, it's tough, like my 4-year-old is trying to take Irish dancing on the computer right now. Of course, she's 4, doesn't have an attention span, but there's still something about, being with people. And I wish she was in the class, or I wish I was teaching
Sure.
my students on campus. So I definitely hear what you're saying. But yeah, the whole video thing definitely, I think, has and Zoom and all that stuff has definitely changed the way we think about, doing these virtual meetings, and its sense of trust can be, built up. Of course, it's just so much nicer to have the face to face. But it's some sort of balance. I think it was heading in this direction anyways, and we just kind of had to fast forward into it because of COVID. So
Right, right. Well, I love the fact that you built a stock offering, because that was, I was like, Tom, I can't, it's hard always to get you out with your schedule, and then you've got travel and everything else. And so to have people be able to get access to these beautiful, I mean, go on to the website and we'll give you all the information in a minute, but just take a look around. It is nothing like your traditional stock photography that you typically see. These are just realistic and respectful and beautiful. And I love how even like you superimpose things from other, like earlier when they were younger. So you'll have
Oh
a
yeah, yeah.
picture of,
Actually, I have that right here. Actually, I have that.
let's see.
This Fisher woman I recently photographed. This was not for a senior living community. It was just more of a stock thing, But
Yeah.
yeah, I love that's kind of part of my signature style in some ways. I love doing that just because it tells like a deeper story, and people love like the before and after, side of
Yeah.
what people look like when they're young. But it adds this really wonderful collage and kind of deeper storytelling aspect to portraits of seniors that goes beyond just like a senior standing there. Not that I have a ton of those on my website, but definitely have a few of them. But
Yeah.
yeah, like as I was kind of saying before, I definitely try and photograph. I go to like senior community centers. And I photograph people actually in their 70s or in 80s, if not older. There's a lady on my
Yeah.
website actually who is 92 years old, and she can touch her toes and stretch, and it's so amazing. I don't think most
Yeah.
people can touch their toes, in terms of stretching,
Right.
and so it's so impressive. So I really try and find, really energetic, positive people to photograph on the stock site. And
Yeah.
I also get to work with that. I'm a Getty Images contributor, so I actually work with the Getty Images art director. I'm able to submit photos both to Getty and put them on my own website. So I get to work with like, the top stock art directors basically in the world, which is great in terms of creating like good, strong content where they give me art direction and then I go and shoot it, which I really, really
Yeah.
enjoy.
No, that's great. I love that you're really looking for people that break the preconceived ideas of there's no positive kind of representation of the word senior, elder, elderly, aging,
Mm,
and we're always
right.
looking for like how do we more positively, identify people. And so we've kind of landed on older adult, which is kind of generic. But I love that you're showing weightlifters and you're showing
Mm,
swimmers. And I mean, these are beautiful photographs of real people that are living
mm.
their best lives and are still, happy and healthy and engaged. And I think that's what people are looking for. Those are the images that they'll relate to.
Yeah, I try and find people that I relate to. I photographed this guy in LA who started weightlifting when he was 40. Now he's 75, and he holds like the most world records for like senior weightlifting. But it's like that's so cool. He started weightlifting at 40, got really into it, and really took
Yeah.
care of himself. I find inspiration from that. Just like the
Right.
91-year-old cyclist. Riding 150 miles a week. Like that's inspiring.
It
And
is.
those are the stories I think we all relate to. We're all, like the I photographed Dan Buettner, the creator of the Blue Zones diet, a few years back, but we're all generally innately interested in how to live long, healthy lives. And that's my favorite part of, doing
Right.
films and photo shoots for the senior living industry. That storytelling aspect is finding those stories and getting them out there. And that's what I was saying earlier in our conversation about, finding these really positive stories within senior living communities and telling those stories. And then the senior living companies can associate their brand with those seniors because they're actual seniors and the type of personalities that live within those communities.
Yeah, I love that. That's great, Tom. I so appreciate your time and your passion for older adults and representing them with so much love and humanity and respect. Tell people how they can get hold of you and tell them where they can find your stock photography.
Yeah, thank you. So I have two websites. My stock website is seniorstockphotos.com. And then if you would like to hire me to do a commission film or photo shoot, that's seniorlivingvisuals.com, or I have another web domain, seniorlivingphotography.com. Yeah, and you can also find my book. It's been so hard I had some booked talk events, and the virus totally, killed it off.
Yeah.
But you guys can find my book, Vietnam War Portraits, The Faces and the Voices, on Amazon and Walmart and Target, on any big major website.
That's great. Well, I hope lots of people will reach out because I think we all need to be working to give a new face to older adults, and you do that so well. So thank you for sharing your senior living marketing perspectives with us.
Thank you, Debbie. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Anytime.
All righty. Take care.
Thank you too. Bye bye.
Bye.